Hey folks, Triple Crown here, coming to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a new solo playtest game of Global War 1939 that I'm starting, and very excited to be doing this. Some exciting news also to announce, and that is Captain G has joined our playtesting group. He has started also his own game versus his son, who goes by the name of Eggman. So very excited to get that going. This is a round one summary. So I will go over the lowlights, the highlights. First off, we'll start over here in the Atlantic, and that is, look at all these Free French and Vichy boats down here. I have never seen a roll where basically so few boats were scuttled. The Allies came out on the edge, definitely, in terms of units that are useful. If these subs had gone German as opposed to Vichy, well, they would have been attacking all of these British or Free French boats, which were not all together in the same fleet. Now, also up here, you don't see it now, but this fleet that's remaining was about 6 boats, 1 British destroyer, and the rest were all Free French. And what they did was they came and cleared the German, about 7 German subs, 2 destroyers, a cruiser, a coastal, and a regular battleship from that sea zone. And that was pretty significant, and the Germans did not roll very well. The British brought in their entire Air Force, which is 3 Spitfires, 2 regular fighters, which are the P-40s, 2 medium bombers, and the Fairey Swordfish. And they only suffered, I think, 2 hits, which was just horrible rolling. So this battleship here is damaged. Now, why this battle over here has become a little bit crucial for the Germans. They're going to have to make a decision. There's 4 boats remaining, and they only have 1 destroyer that can go in range. That was what they inherited from the Free French. Can go sink those boats up there, but they might lose an aircraft or 2 doing it. So they are going to have to make that tough decision. Now, normally, folks, when I do attack this sea zone, I normally leave a couple destroyers behind, or submarines behind, simply because if the British come up over here and wipe it out, I want to have a follow-up. So the follow-up in this scenario is not very strong. The Germans still do have 4 submarines sitting over here in Quebec, which are out of range of joining in the attack. However, if they remain here, these boats are coming from a naval base. They can go 1, 2, 3 and take out all these submarines. So they're going to have to make a decision. The Russian Navy up here is getting the heck out of Dodge, or at least trying to make their way over to maybe North America or Canada. So when they're in the war, they will have a combined fleet. The French made a nuisance of themselves here in Marseille. They took Bordeaux, which was a vacated territory, and they also took Reims. So the Germans are very easily going to be able to clean that up next turn. However, it is a little bit of a nuisance. The Italians, or the British down here, built an air base over here in Cairo and brought in their fleet over here from Madras again. And they took Greece, or annexed Greece, and the Italians came in and took out the coastal battleship, 2 destroyers, and British naval transport, and they did not suffer a single casualty. The Italians also built a miner factory down here. The British built a miner factory in Cairo. That's not a big difference, but I gotta tell you, folks, because I have an idea what the strategy the Italians want to do. The Italians do not care about Africa right now. They don't care about their navy. They don't care about North Africa. They are going to be focused on a different agenda this game, which was something that the Hilltop Pillbox did in his last game, which we're going to get into. Now, currently, The biggest changes in terms of what we're trying to go with this game is we're going to see if we can play test this game without allowing a major IC purchase in Romania. So Germany, well, they start with a miner there now, so they're going to have to purchase 2 more miners in Bulgaria and Hungary, and they're also now going to be able to produce a colonial factory in Helsinki. So they're still going to be able to produce 10 units on the Russian border. However, two of those factories are going to be one space back. So is this going to change the dynamic of the balance? We'll see. We're trying to find a balance here between the Russian and the German. And if the Italians all want to go and kill Russia, which is what the agenda is going to be this game, we want to see how balanced is this game on this portion of the board. If the Italians and the Germans just say, you know what, let's just go for it, and we don't care, we're going to ignore the west coast of Europe, we're going to ignore North Africa, we are just going to go and do the Russian crush. So that's what is on the menu in this game now, which is also going to be, I guess, tricky for the Russians right out of the gate, and that is because for their economy they only rolled a 4. So the Russians were able to go into Valpyri and they survived with a light armor, so they got a bonus 1 for that territory. However, that is not a cumulative thing that goes into their economy, their wartime economy for declaring war. So that is a separate tally, so to say. So basically, Russia has to get to 48 to be in the war, and that 48 is only dice rolling. It has nothing to do with how many territories the Russians capture over here. It is only what they roll on their dice. So just to clarify that, the Russians are making their way back to Moscow. The train moved from Novosibirsk back to, it went 1, 2, 3, 4 into Moscow, brought 3 infantry back home, and the armor and the artillery are all making their way. This infantry here started to make a head east, and they might have to turn around and come back, given what how poorly the Russians rolled on their economy. Now, also over here in the Pacific, Japan is also going to be joining in on the Russian crush, but in the first, they want to neutralize these British forces down here in the South Pacific, specifically Calcutta. They are going for the Calcutta crush. They are setting up for it on turn 3. So if you're going to do the Calcutta crush on turn 3, that means whatever your purchase is on turn 1 is the only thing that's going to be able to make it down to Calcutta to capture it. So just be aware of that. So the Japanese did buy a couple naval transports and a couple ground units. Next turn, you're going to see this big stack of guys here and this big stack of guys here all jump back on the transports and come back down here to Siam, which has now been annexed. And they are going to be building a naval base. And turn 3, they're going to be able to hit Siam with about 10 loaded transports and their entire air force. So that is going to be very interesting to see what happens down here. Which also means the Chinese are going to be able to expand. Currently they have a very nice, healthy looking stack of, that looks like 10 infantry just in this territory alone. They've got a couple cavalry, and the Americans were able to lend-lease a light armor to the Chinese. The CCP are able to go into Chahar, and they've got a nice little army forming there. So, but we're doing the Calcutta crush. I want to know what happens when you do the Calcutta crush. Can Japan recover and still push back the Chinese and go into either Novosibirsk or make Russia poor? But they don't have to do the Calcutta crush if they don't want to. They're making it look like they are to maybe lure the Russians into attacking up here in the northern regions, and then they can go into Russia without activating the Mongolia rule. So that is something that Bill and I talked about. Over here, the Dutch boats have been annexed by the Australians, and Australia is hiding its navy down here on southern Australia, and that is because the Japanese have a contingent of a couple cruisers, a destroyer, and 4 submarines sitting here in the Carolines. The Americans don't have much to worry about because the Japanese are all headed around the Horn of South Asia towards Calcutta. So they are sitting here in Hawaii with their entire navy all intact. They rolled a 9 for their economy. However, because the Germans did attack Paris, they will have 14 IPP to spend next turn. So that's all I got, folks. That's a round 1 summary. Stay tuned for round 2 coming up, and as soon as I can.